This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to the program. We're glad to have you with us as always. Well, the state of Arkansas is reopening, although there are questions as to whether or not we've met all of the phase one criteria. One of the industries hit hardest in the COVID-19 pandemic is the hospitality and tourism industry. I caught up with Stacy Hurst. She's the secretary of the Arkansas Department of Parks, Heritage, and Tourism to gauge where she sees things now and where she sees things going. You got a lot of stuff happening in the space that you oversee in terms of tourism and hospitality, convention business, heritage tourism. Let's begin with casinos. We're going to reopen casinos on May 18th or give them the ability to reopen. These are typically can be an older population with some health concerns in a confined area. Are you worried that this is the right thing to do?
Well, what I know is that the owners of the casinos and their top level staff have been working for weeks on a protocol that they can put in place that will protect their customers and their staff as well. And it's a very in-depth protocol, very intensive. And so that will be coupled with the Department of Health's directives, a guidance document that is broader, but it'll be coupled with the individual casinos will have their own extensive protocols. So I think with the limited capacity, the measures that they're going to take to sanitize, I think it will be a safe way to move forward.
If there is some sort of infection from a casino, does this mean contact tracing is going to take it back into the community and they're going to have to find out where that may have come from? Or could that put a halt to the casinos being reopened because it could spread so quickly?
Well, certainly we've talked about should there be a spike in infections, then we may have to back off of some of the loosening of restrictions. None of us want that. So I think the industries are being very careful as they reopen to not cause an increase in infections. And yes, the contact tracing is a very important piece of it. The Department of Health has factored that into their decisions, and the various industries will capture names and be able to provide those to the Department of Health should an outbreak occur.
Let's talk about the restaurant industry, which has been just decimated by this coronavirus. What are you hearing from restaurant owners? That I hear from quite a few that say they are not ready to open beyond the takeout and the drive-through business that they're doing. And we're seeing some of that posted socially. I'm sure that there are also some that are very vocal about wanting to get open and let their diners come back in and sit down. With that mixed message, though, what is your takeaway on that?
I think I'm hearing the same thing, Roby, that you are, and there's a bit of an urban-rural divide on this debate. I think that the restaurants that feel like they can open safely will do so. Those that feel like they can open with that very reduced capacity and still make money will do so. Many will choose to wait for phase two, where restrictions will be lifted a little further, and many have pivoted and are using the curbside pickup effectively, and so they can hold off a little longer. So I think it's really a pretty broad spectrum approach to the restaurant industry. They're all so different, but I know that many are encouraged by at least this first phase where restrictions have been loosened, and looking forward to phase two.
You mentioned phase two. Let's talk about phase one. One of the provisions of phase one is that we would see a 14-day decline in those cases that are coming out. We're actually on about a 4-day increase when you look at the new cases that have come in from the statistics that the governor and the Department of Health provide. Business owners kind of tell me that not a lot has changed in 6 weeks. We have not found a cure for this virus. We don't have a vaccine. We have hunkered down, and that's helped stop the crush on the hospital system there, but we're still basically behind on testing, don't have a vaccine, and we don't seem to have this thing under control yet. Is that not a concern?
Um, Dr. Smith, Rowie would be a better person to evaluate and address the health risk, the trends. But I do know that they look at that broadly, that factors into decisions. And all of us are eager to get back to work and back to our normal life and re-energizing the economy. And that's what the Economic Recovery Task Force is working on, to help the public understand what provisions are in place, how you can remain safe yourself, the thinking that goes into the decisions on the directives. All of that we hope we can include in a very customer-friendly way on a new website that has launched, arkansasready.com. There'll be a whole lot of information there that I think will be helpful for the public and will help them get a sense of confidence about re-engaging with the economy.
Parks are reopening in kind of a stuttered approach there. There are a few, steps along the way there. And one of the main developments this past week is that there will be an allowance for out-of-state visitors to come to Arkansas's parks. They can't come from any hot spots. Nonetheless, this still does open up risk in a major way. Tell me what went into that decision-making process and why you feel confident that we can control that situation.
Well, let me say I'm very proud of our Arkansas State Park staff. There were, I believe, 12 state systems that closed entirely. We never did that. We did place restrictions on our state parks. We went to day use only. We eliminated overnight use of our parks. And I think all of those were very strategic and smart measures that we took. And as we continue to look at reopening and loosening restrictions, we are doing that very gradually and carefully and thoughtfully, and in concert really with our other state park systems across the country. We're in good communication with other state park systems. So the first step was to open to self-contained RV units only. The bathhouses would not be open. So that was a good move that was very well received. Next, we will open our cabins, our lodges, more of our overnight uses on the 15th. Originally, before the governor had lifted the restriction on out-of-state recreational travel, we were open only to Arkansans. But with that lifted, we have gotten ourselves in line with the directive that the governor issued, and we will accept out-of-state overnight visitors, with the exception of those hot spots. And if they choose to come from a hot spot, we'll just require that they quarantine for 14 days on site.
Again, if something happens at one of those state parks, does it shut the park down? Does it, how do you trace somebody back to another state and all of the potential tentacles that they could have had contact with between where they're from and coming here to Arkansas, plus heading back?
Well, fortunately, we keep very good records of our visitors at state parks. When someone makes a reservation for an overnight stay, then we have that data and we can provide that. We're very hopeful that we don't have any outbreaks, of course, but we are taking extensive measures to sanitize, to keep our staff safe, to encourage social distancing amongst our visitors, and all of that protocol that the Department of Health has been very clear about.
Tell me, has this conversation come up in the task force that you guys are working on to reopen? When do you think conventions will be allowed again in Arkansas?
I don't know when the date is. The protocols for large indoor and outdoor venues was released. It's pretty restrictive. I'm getting a lot of calls from wedding planners, big events, convention centers, but at this point, we just don't have an announcement date planned. I know the Department of Health is thinking about that. And one thing they're trying to do is, especially with the announcement about casinos opening, they're trying to harmonize the directives that have already been issued for things like large venues, museums, those sorts of things, so that they're more consistent across the board.
When homemade is too good to keep at home. Helping Arkansas business do business. Making better happen. with First Security.
You'll find us at the end of a lot of long country roads, covering over 60% of the great state of Arkansas. Our 17 electric distribution cooperatives are working day and night to provide reliable, affordable power to over 500,000 homes, farms, and businesses, just like yours. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, your local energy partners.